What a sleepy song, but
sounds like an Italian music in a Spanish version.
I kind of like it.
So bowling.
Oh boy, we're live, y'all.
We're almost operatic there.
Yes, it is. I want to start crying. Oh my goodness. Alexa, stop. Mama Ruth, you want to do your introduction?
Good morning, everyone. We almost started crying here.
Yes, yes.
How's everybody doing? Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Even though it's cloudy outside and it seems like it's going to be raining and kind of, relaxing day, come on, go grab your cup of coffee and join us for the show. We have a great informational show today. Hey, everyone. How's everybody doing? Wake up.
Good morning. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Ponduce. As Mama Ruth said, this is today is October the 28th. Just a couple more days left in October, believe it or not, and 6 days left until our election ends for 2020. Election's been going on, right, in early voting, absentee balloting, but it ends on the 3rd, but hopefully we'll know sometime after the 3rd.
Actually, early voting ends this coming Saturday, Halloween Day, the 31st, but our final day is November 3rd.
Well, we will definitely know who the president is in December when the Electoral College gets together and casts their ballot.
Oh, yay.
Maybe they don't claim that there's some theft and there's some discrepancy and something going on with the votes.
Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic today, but we've got to anyway. We'll talk about that, I guess, briefly. Welcome. Thank you for those who are joining us on Facebook Live, but also those who join us on YouTube later and also on Facebook later as well. As we always do on Coffee and Ponduce, we're going to go around the Brady Bunch screen. We're going to everyone introduce yourself and introduce your imaginary button. If you can spend just maybe a minute introducing yourself, because usually we go through fast, but at least spend a minute so I can share our show. Sometimes I don't have enough time. I know that won't be a problem for you, Stephen, but I'm just saying. So we love you, Stephen. So who's got the Brady Bunch screen up? Anybody? I guess we'll do.
It's Stephen, then Dr. B, Barbara, and myself.
All right, Stephen, you go first.
All right, I'm Stephen DiFiore. As Christian said, I can talk a lot. I can keep going and going and going. Very apropos for a politician. I'm a member of the Libertarian Party of North Carolina, and I'm this year's gubernatorial candidate for governor of North Carolina for the Libertarian Party. I'm the recording secretary for the Mecklenburg County Party. And today's button, I'm actually wearing the Libertarian Party National Committee lapel pin. It is a little torch of liberty. Every political party has its own symbol. Our unofficial one is a cute little porcupine because porcupines just kind of want to be left alone. But the official one is the Torch of Liberty, which harkens back to the Statue of Liberty and the promise of freedom and hope that the United States should represent. And with that, we will go to Dr. B.
Good morning. I'm a retired physician, practiced in Texas, moved to North Carolina about 12 years ago. My big activity, my big button is Medicare for All. Anytime anybody talks about public option and expanding the ACA or reversing the ACA, ask them some details about the plan, not just that it's going to be beautiful or it'll be there in 2 weeks. That's nothing. Medicare for All is the only plan that has real answers that have been vetted and are going to reduce overall healthcare spending for households and businesses and provide freedom and choice of physicians and hospitals. No other plan will do that. So Medicare for All is the way to go. My more recent interest is Black Lives Matter, because I believe there's tremendous misunderstanding about what that term means and why we need to take really proactive anti-racist approaches to solving America's biggest open festering wound. And then, of course, in the last few weeks, I've taken an interest in helping with the election in North Carolina, because you're probably aware that tons of absentee ballots, thousands, are being rejected because people, I'm sorry, they just kind of overlooked the little detailed instructions on the back of the envelope about where the witness has to sign and print their address and things like that. So ballots are being thrown away. And so I've been involved in phone banks and text banks. In fact, I'm doing that as this show is going on to try to get people's votes to count. They've already tried to vote absentee, and they're all sorts of excuses are being used to invalidate their votes. So I invite you to join me in that effort. You go to North Carolina Democratic Party's website, and you can probably find a way to sign up for one of the volunteer opportunities. So that's what I'm doing.
Next.
My name is Barbara Bacon, and I'm a healthcare advocate here in South Charlotte. I absolutely agree with what Dr. B said, especially in light of what just happened in Philadelphia. So again, Black Lives Matter, gun control in some stage has got to help, although this poor gentleman was mentally ill and they seemed to overlook that. And the police officers there didn't even have tasers. So their second choice was to shoot him. I don't understand that. I have a family interest. I've got a mulatto niece and nephew. It scares me to death. They're very, very young children, and it just terrifies me. Other than that, I'm still helping driving people in our community to the polls. I did actually get a text from the Biden campaign to help with texting people. I'm assuming that's what Dr. B was talking about. So I think I'm going to get a little bit more involved in that because there's not too many people left that haven't voted in my area. So that's the good news. Thank you.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. This is Ruth Perez. Everybody's calling me now Mama Ruth, since I'm a grandmother, first of all, and a community advocate for our city. I've been here in Coffee and Pan Dulce. We are going almost on our third or second year. I lost my numbers. My private or invisible buttons are always going to be the same. And of course, if I'm in this group and I'm joining Coffee and Pan Dulce, is because we all share the same thoughts. I share Medicare for all. I care for Black Lives Matters. I care for a different country in our different city, especially in our government officials. And right now, it's been burning in my heart, the gun sense reform. We need something to make that stop about killing, owning gun rights. I understand and respect Amendment 2, but it's not fair for innocent lives to be terminating them so quick and so young. So that's me. And I do sit in different boards. I'm a court mediator. I'm a Medicare for all advocate for the Charlotte Community Health Clinic. And I sit in other ones. So whatever y'all need, I'm here.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mama Ruth. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts here at Coffee and Pan Dulce. It's always great to have all of you. We are getting down to the last 6 days of our election cycle for 2020, a very important election, as you can tell. We're all supporting a bunch of different individuals, hopefully. As we always do in Coffee and Pan Dulce, let's salute to our neighbors. If you have your coffee or whatever you're drinking this morning, since it is close to the election, some may have switched to more libations, who knows?
Irish coffee, is nothing wrong with
Yes.
that.
And Mexican pique, it's pretty good too.
I actually thought about that this morning. And then also we want to thank our Pan Dulce sponsor, Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue. So please, they have just done another remodeling, so go visit them if you have a chance.
Have you gone by there?
I have. I was there
You know,
yesterday.
that's like our Mexican Superman or Spider-Man hero.
I saw it.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. It was so
There's,
good.
yeah, you guys would love it. On the front window when you open the bakery, there's this this superhero, and he's wearing a mask, and it's really kind of cool. I was like, oh, that was
His name is El Chapulín.
the Chapulín. Okay.
Yes.
I kind of for a while there, I thought it was anyway. What was the superhero that Jack Black played? My favorite guy.
Nacho Libre.
Nacho Libre. I'm sorry. All right. Hey, well.
I got a funny story about that actually. I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how many of you know about luchadors or
You used to be one, right?
no,
WWE.
not me, but my lovely lady grew up watching like the El Santo
Oh
luchador
God,
movies,
yes.
and so every now and then Nacho Libre pops up on like our Netflix like recommended watch. She goes, "Oh, we should watch that." I'm like, I don't know if I want to, but okay. So we haven't gotten around to it yet, but we will one of these days.
It's a wonderful movie. You've got to watch it. It is really a sweet.
I've seen it.
And okay, well, yeah,
That's when you need a libation, Stephen.
Yes. So
it's real
when we do it, I'll have coffee and then I'll put
yes,
Irish coffee.
Yes.
I am. Hey, that's one of the songs. All right, I forgot to tell you my buttons. Medicare for All has been a button of mine. Trust Women as well, and Black Lives Matter with the invisible button. I don't actually have a button or a shirt, but yes, I do believe. Baby Trump Pinata, whose cousin may be broken on after the election. We'll see it. I may have to go have a sip of Dr. B's fancy champagne that he may pop open after the election. He's supporting Biden Harris back there. He's got his mask on. He's Cynthia Wallace for Congress and Moms Demand Action as well. And he has a copy of the Constitution. So today our topic is what Latino America looks like in 2020. But before we talk about that, we want to talk about any COVID-19 updates. One of the specific things is, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, if maybe y'all can remind me, there were some reports that were coming out that said they have done, I don't know if they have done research on whether blood type makes a difference on whether a person catches COVID-19. That was kind of the conversation we were having. And this was an important conversation because I remember Stephen, maybe a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was a couple of months ago, I can't remember, everything is blended in together. He'd asked if maybe blood types were making a difference or so forth. So we have Dr. B here. And so Dr. B, if you can explain to us or maybe tell us, is there research out there about blood type in COVID-19? And then I have another question about the D and zinc after that.
Yeah, there was kind of speculation, and I think there were probably some early observations that made people kind of say, well, maybe there's something to that. But my understanding of the article that I read, and it's been a week or so, so I need to refresh my memory. My understanding is that really kind of didn't pan out, that there's nothing protective or beneficial in having a particular blood type or not. So this is one of those kind of little possible leads that I don't believe went anywhere. And you know, if it did, so what? I mean, at the most, that would mean that instead of maybe having a 10% chance of catching it under normal circumstances, if you had a particular blood type, maybe that would mean you only had a 7% chance. Well, that wouldn't necessarily be a carte blanche to say, oh, I'm not going to wear a mask or I'm going to ignore all these guidelines or anything like that. So I think we could pretty much dismiss the issue of blood type from a practical standpoint as it relates to anything with getting or not getting the virus.
What about our antibodies? They're wearing out at a certain percentage. I was told yesterday at the health department that I need to get my flu shot ASAP. And even though I had COVID in the past, it will decrease. Normally it'll wear out by 25%, I think, certain weeks after.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the specific numbers are. And again, they don't really matter. My best understanding is that the immunity you get from having COVID is going to decrease over a period of time. And of course, we're still in the middle of this, aren't we? So we don't have final numbers. But it appears to be going down instead of staying constant, like happens after you get a polio vaccine or smallpox or something like that, chickenpox. You're pretty much protected for life. These things just kind of work differently in different illnesses and different antibody systems. So yeah, that's the concern, that even if we get a good vaccine, even it may not last forever. But if it protects most of us for several months, maybe that'll allow the spread of the virus to kind of stop. As relates to the flu shot, that's kind of a separate but related matter. And the flu shot doesn't have anything to do with boosting your resistance to COVID. They're two separate illnesses. But the point is, you don't want to come down with flu and have to go to the hospital and find that the hospital's all full of people with COVID. And so that's the importance of getting a flu shot, because every year we have a predictable surge in people that are getting the flu, and they tend to kind of fill up hospitals. And so we're just trying to avoid the strain on healthcare systems by encouraging everyone to get their flu shot. So kind of two separate different things, but they go together in terms of they both fill up ICU beds.
I got a quick question because I just thought of it, and I can't believe I don't know this as much as I've tried to read about this stuff. As someone who's not a physician or an epidemiologist, I'm just a layman, kind of curious about such things. But you said that polio and smallpox virus, you get that shot and you're immune for the rest of your life. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's because those are DNA viruses, right? But is SARS-CoV-2, is that an RNA, like a retrovirus, or is that a DNA virus? Do you know?
You're embarrassing me because I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, neither do I. So
yeah. Well, and what that suggests to me is that you may be exactly right. There may be a technical detail like that about the specifics of the virus as to why they last long. Frankly, not being an immunologist myself, I can't speak to that. That may be exactly right. I just don't know.
At least I'm not alone in my ignorance.
Oh man, I can join most people in any form of ignorance if you scratch a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, that might be exactly the reason. But the bottom line is some viruses, the immunization confers lifetime immunity. Others, like the cold and the flu, we develop antibodies to those things, and 6 months later, boom, we can kind of get them all over again. So.
Barb, you have a question?
I'm curious about yours because I actually had a neighbor yesterday start talking about she's increasing her vitamin D and she's increasing her zinc and she's increasing her B vitamins. And I'm like, okay, well, B vitamins, if you take them often enough, will help your immune system, and vitamin C, but too much vitamin C can be gastrointestinal disaster. So I did not know anything about zinc, and zinc goes along with colds is what they say. And so Dr. B, what do you know about that? Because
again, those are, if you're fighting a world war and somebody says, oh, I have a better, maybe a helmet that if you get shot in the head, that'll help you. Yeah, that might help a couple of people, but that's not going to win the war, right? So all these the term is adjunctive, meaning kind of off to the side kind of issues like the vitamins and supplements and stuff like that. To the extent that they may help, it's going to be minuscule. I mean, we don't need everybody in the country out taking a bunch of vitamins. We need everybody in the country wearing masks and staying away from each other, staying home, not going to bars and indoor restaurants. And, well, why not both is what Barbara mentioned. I think there are problems in taking too much of a lot of these supplements. And, people get nervous and they get scared. So they say, well, if one vitamin C a day may be good, I'm going to take 10. Well, then you end up in the hospital and there's no ICU bed. So there's a downside risk. And the other thing is, I think people put false hope. They misplace their focus on somewhat trivial things like that are easy to do, right? You got to take a bunch of supplements. And then they tend to not put as much focus on things that we know really do matter. So that's my concern about all this talk about, the vitamins and supplements and kind of stuff, is that it just kind of shifts the focus onto something that's not as important as things that we know really are important.
And personal health is also just really important anyways, right? Because if you're the healthier you are, the better chance you have of recovery. And so, personal health is, and I'll tell you this, as someone who wasn't very healthy and then who had a health scare and then had to get healthy, you feel so much better when you're healthy.
Yeah, you do. Absolutely. And stuff like, if you smoke a lot, well, that exposes your respiratory system to more infections of all types. So yeah, if you stop smoking right now, that would probably be the smartest thing you can do to decrease your chances of catching COVID. but yeah, general good health is great, but just be aware and that a lot of these things that people say, oh, that's going to boost your immune system. Or there was a big article recently about does mouthwash kind of kill virus? And man, all I have to do is gargle with Listerine once or twice a day. Well, that's one of those things that if you take a plate of virus and you put a bunch of mouthwash on, it's going to kill the virus. Well, that's not the same as it being in your mouth, because the virus lives in your nose and you don't get mouthwash up in your nose and in your eyes and things like that. So these simplistic solutions is what we're concerned about. This is a complicated issue, and simple things like supplements and gargling with mouthwash
Or
aren't
getting
going to solve
plenty
the
of
problem.
sleep.
Well, that helps too. All those general measures are good, but they're not kind of magic bullets.
Stephen, what you said and what Dr. B said is I've actually experienced that firsthand. This last Sunday on our family weekly call, our family was discussing whether we were going to get together again for Thanksgiving, or they were going to get together in Texas and so forth. And one of my aunts was sounding as if though we could do it similar to what you're talking about, because they were talking about high blood pressure, and one of them was taken lemon juice, and one of them was doing this and all this kind of stuff. And what you said was exactly, of course, I can't really say that to one of my aunts, but to say, we wouldn't have to worry about it if you just maybe go walk or do basic healthy things to keep yourself healthy. It's like everyone's always looking for a shortcut, for being healthy, rather than, like taking vitamin D and vitamin zinc is a lot easier than having to remember to put the mask on for some people. And
Yeah, I mean, you got to do all the above, right? You got to,
yes,
if you take supplements, take the supplements, but also get out there, eat right, take a walk.
Sure.
That's why being a dog owner is so great, because the dog forces you to go for a walk every, a couple of times a day. And then, when you have a basset hound like me with short little legs, it doesn't outwalk you. So that's good.
Well, thank you for that information, Doctor. And I could see how people could be really confused, because this story about D and zinc was on WCNC, our local NBC station here in Charlotte. And they did this, it was at noon and then in the evening as well, about research for D and zinc. And what they said was you find it in all cold medicines, and they didn't say this works, but the fact they were doing the story, I could see someone going, honey, you gotta go out and buy some D and zinc, and it's already my multivitamin, so I don't really have to take anything additional. But anywho, thank you so much.
Well, let me just finish with like a couple of years ago when there was a pretty bad normal seasonal flu going around that got me. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in the media, like you say, about zinc, and it says it just may cut down you're getting it by 1 or 2%, and it just may shorten the duration of your illness by a third of a day. So this is all just kind of trivial, and it's just not going to make the difference between you getting sick or not. So again, fine to take those things in normal, moderate doses, but don't bank on them at the expense of doing other things that you mentioned. Everybody, I mean, the human condition is to be lazy, right? And to not want to put in much effort. That's why most of us are overweight and not that great shape. So that's kind of why we end up grasping onto these little straws, because they're easy solutions. I understand that.
Well, speaking of overweight, the election ends on
Tuesday.
You knew I was going to go.
Maybe.
So I did want to say I was really excited because we early voted on Thursday, and they gave us these wonderful pens. I don't know, is that just a Mecklenburg County thing, or is that?
I don't know. I think a lot of boards of elections are doing them because it's part of the not having to touch the screen. So you got to have a thing. And they give you that, and then they don't have to give you the stickers because that's your sticker, and so. But it's not universal.
They're giving the stickers. They have them in a little basket, and you grab it yourself.
You can ask one, yeah. But these pens are probably well, I won't say that. I don't think these pens are going to last until they're not going to last until the next election.
No. I mean, they're not very expensive, and they probably have very little ink. But I just thought it was really neat. You can use this as a pointer. It's a stylus. You can use a pointer. So. The reason I wanted to segue into this was because we're hearing all over the news I know that Mama Ruth and I were interviewed, I believe this weekend, by a reporter on one of the big Spanish networks, that they were doing a story on the Latino vote and the importance of it. You're seeing how important that vote may be, not only in North Carolina, but in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, and Florida, which is all over the news because of the diversity of who
Not
Latino.
only not only being interviewed for the Latino vote, how is the party, each party, it's
Yes,
treating our Latinos?
exactly.
How they're reaching out to them?
Yes, and that was kind of what they interviewed us about. And, we talked, and it was a very great conversation that I know I had, and we'll find out when that story comes out. But one of the questions that the reporter asked was very interesting. She wanted to know, of course, just my family, and I'm sure she probably asked you the same questions, Mama Ruth. And she said, what could the Biden campaign do better, reaching out to Latinx voters, and so forth, because there has been a lot of concern in many states that they've waited to the last moment to reach out. And basically what I said was, yes, they may have waited the last moment, but it was far better than what Hillary didn't even pay any attention to us until it was too late. So at least they acknowledged, even if it was 2 months out or a month out, the importance. And yes, they are scrambling to it. And what my conversation with her was, what I would love is a commercial to come out that was specifically out for our Latinx voters, that was on that could be played on any, whether it was Telemundo, Univision, ABC, CNN, whatever. And the commercial was as diverse as our family. So you may have had a tia speaking to the cousin in Spanish, and the cousin responding back in English, and the young kid going, I don't know what you're saying, and because that truly is more reflective of our families. We all don't speak Spanish. We all don't speak just English. Many of us have Italian cousins and so forth. So we're just as diverse as the rest of America. So for me, that would be an ideal kind of commercial. But I understand it's easier for political parties to just put everybody into one little package and think everyone is like this, because then they don't want to do the hard work of actually trying to reach everybody. It's easier for just to do that. And so my question to her was, I think it shows, or in my view, and I'd like to hear what everyone has to say on both parties, but I can't speak to the Libertarian Party. Stephen, maybe you can educate me on that. But with both parties, there's a little bit of systemic racism in both parties. And one of the ways I can tell is, I can talk about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and I mentioned this to her, when they say, I want to reach out to Latino voters, they automatically assume it has to be in Spanish. And because they do that, it turns maybe other Latinx individuals who don't speak Spanish. So instead of saying Latinos for Biden Harris, it's in Spanish, going something for Biden Harris, as if, I get what they're doing. They're trying to put a little bit of Latino flair on it. But if you're a person who doesn't speak Spanish, you look at that, you automatically, it's kind of confusing. And so I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say. And I also
mentioned that, Christian, to her. Yeah. That really brought it into my attention. And I told her the same thing, similar to it. The way I feel is that sometimes we exclude our Latinx communities from the entire community. We want to have a change for everyone, not just by meaning or Latinos or Mexicans or Americans or Blacks. No, we want a change for everyone. So every information we get should be neutral. Yeah. And I do agree with it, because then we feel excluded, like, okay, this is only our group. And what if this leader doesn't like me? She's not going to reach to me because, she doesn't get along with us. So that has to change.
Well, and what I told her was the same philosophy with Black Lives Matter. Just because I say Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that I don't believe your life doesn't matter. So just because we say we would like for them to reach out to those of us who don't speak Spanish doesn't mean that you stop reaching out to those who speak Spanish. It doesn't have to be either or.
Not only that, but whoever only speaks Spanish, they're assuming that they don't have legal rights to vote.
Exactly. That was what I was telling her. What I said was, we do this in the generalized, in the white outreach, which would be, I guess, the general outreach. In the general outreach, we have a message for those who are concerned about climate change. We have those who are concerned about every specific issue, Medicare for all, healthcare, prescriptions. So we do that already in the general population. Why does it sound surprising that our other communities would like the same kind of effort as well? So anyway, I'd like to hear what anyone else has to say. Dr. B.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and my guess is that it boils down to economics. There's only a certain degree, and you and Stephen, who have run for political office, can speak to that better than I can. But there's a limited amount of resources you have to kind of micro target. But in my efforts to be an anti-racist, I'm currently reading this book about how to be an anti-racist. And what he was just going in the section I was reading yesterday is. Oh, I mean, there's so many things that are so obvious that are not obvious until someone points them out. And he was going on this thing about how African Americans are viewed as kind of a block of Black people, and white people tend to lump into that immigrants from other places like the West Indies who had no real recent African connection. And how each one of those groups kind of thinks the other is inferior. African Americans think, all those immigrants, they shouldn't be here. And the immigrant Black people feel like, oh, African Americans, they're lazy and they're all on welfare. So it's like they're kind of almost at each other's throats. Similar, I guess, to kind of how in the white community, we call old, poor, not college educated white men and suburban women and all these kind of things. So everybody's always kind of trying to break out another group. Yeah. And the purpose, when you see any of that, is for racial dominance, right? You want to kind of somehow say, I'm different from that group and I'm better, and here's why they're not is equal. So there's this hierarchy that seems to be a natural tendency that all of us want to do. But when you look at it, it's inherently racist to do that. Yeah. So yeah, you introduced that comment about the Latinx community, and that there's a certain amount of racism, systemic racism that goes on. And I think that's just a more explanation and understanding of how it's all around us. And it's critical, I think, to recognize and be aware of it and take steps to try to dismantle it.
Sure. Hey, Stephen, you want to add anything from a third-party perspective? How?
Yeah. I mean, I can't necessarily speak to the systemic racism in either the Democratic Party or Republican Party. I mean, from an outsider looking in, I can observe aspects of it. When a guy like Biden says, oh yeah, poor people can be just as good as white people. It's like, there's that's a kind of a Freudian slip. And then to say nothing of what, some of the top tier Republicans say about some folks not sending their best. In the libertarian,
those aren't Freudian slips, are they?
That's
what we believe.
That's just saying the quiet part out loud, right? That's saying the quiet part out loud. But from the libertarian perspective, we really don't focus, like as a party, as like a cultural group, we really don't focus on race all that much. Now, books like How to Be an Anti-Racist by Idra Kendi, or the D'Angelo's book,
White Fragility.
That one, yeah, there you go. So those are in like an academic school of thought called intersectionality, and that's kind of useful for in some aspect on how to see how different interest groups kind of overlap and how some people can have common threads, but also different threads, right? But as far as a way to try to structure the world, libertarians don't really do that very well or very much, simply because ours is kind of an individualistic viewpoint, right? But as far as outreach to the Hispanic community, the Latino community in particular, we have great advocates like Martha Bueno, who is the Dade County chair for the Libertarian County. What's the Gloria Alvarez, who is works for an economic think tank and puts out great TED Talks and does a lot of outreach. A significant number of our national chair committee is of Hispanic persuasion. I want to say, I think the chair of the Libertarian National Party, Joe Bishop Henchman, is of Hispanic persuasion. Although I'm really terrible about telling those things, and I never really asked him. So again, it's not something that comes up. But ours is a party where we do have a lot of diversity of like people of intrinsic characteristics, but we really focus on ideas and thoughts and things like that, and we try to be inclusive, like a big tent, right? So all are welcome. If you're the kind of person that you have I would say illiberal viewpoints, and I mean liberal in like the classical sense, it's like probably not the party for you. But as far as going out and reaching out to other communities, we knock on doors and we'll be like, hey, here's our issues, what do you think? And then that's that, and we'll go to whatever community is out there and
So y'all
do
do
our best.
canvassing as well?
Yeah, we do canvassing. We don't do it as much right now because we don't, I mean, COVID really threw a spanner in the works, because it's like, well, do we really want to start knocking on doors and freaking people out? Because the communities that we mostly canvass in are working class or working poor or even public housing
The
communities.
Democratic Party didn't do much canvassing this year, and that's understandable because of the COVID. But Lord, the phone's been bombarding. By the way,
yeah.
Dr. B, Tara Long wants you to know thank you for phone banking.
Yes.
She really appreciates that, and we all do, because it's a hard work for you to get hangups. People
Yeah.
don't protect
And-
themselves.
Let me just mention about canvassing, and it's very interesting because in the phone banking, mainly what we're doing is not just say go vote or go vote for Biden. It's trying to contact North Carolina absentee ballot voters whose ballots are being rejected. I might have mentioned that at the top. And so we call them and email them and text them, but they're still 80% of those you can't get a hold of. They don't pick up their phone or kind of whatever. So that group has begun an in-person door-to-door canvassing done very carefully with strict social distancing and PPE and whatnot, just to knock on doors and tell people, hey, your ballot hadn't been accepted. And a lot of them say, this is the first I've heard about it. And so then that kind of door-to-door canvassing is paying off and getting some ballots counted that up to now have not been.
I do want to clarify myself, or not to say the word clarify, but explain, because Secretary Colette Alston, who's following us on Facebook, did remind me, I did mention to the reporter, we have to put things into context with what we're talking about. Yes, I was speaking as a Democrat. Our Democratic Party is a very diverse party. We're not, we have different concerns and different issues in the Republican Party, which traditionally is not as diverse normally. And as a result of that, it doesn't alarm me that we're having these conversations about our Latinx voters and outreach and so forth, because when you have so many different individuals at the table, it's like a family that's diverse. Everyone has a different point of view. My conversation with her is, I'm just glad we're having this conversation. We didn't have this conversation under the Hillary campaign. We didn't have people at the table being able to raise questions that look like me. There were people that look like Dr. B and maybe even Barbara that were telling us what we need to do within the Latinx community. But for the first time, we actually have people that maybe look like Ruth, Mama Ruth and I, and actually even Stephen, it's kind of Latino, believe it or not. And so that are on these calls saying, and I told her, I said, I was on a call 3 months ago with the Biden outreach for Latinos. And the person who led that call started with, I realize we have diversity in this community. And I realize that there are different aspects. It was the first time I'd ever heard that before. So I was like, wow, that was one of the reasons why I made the decision to wholeheartedly, as a Bernie Sanders supporter, support Joe Biden, was because it was the acknowledgement that I've got to reach out to people, and I'm not going to make everyone happy, but at least I'm admitting that I've got to reach out. And so maybe the next election will
at least listen to the questions. They might not have an answer, but at least they're listening.
Yes, there was no one, when I said we need to do more to reach out to English speaking Latinos who are third, fourth generation, there was no, oh, that's a terrible idea. That they were like, oh, well, interesting. And I was like, this is the first time, that's ever happened. And so I have a lot of optimism because yes, they have these concerns, or we have concerns in North Carolina, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and in Florida, but we're acknowledging that there may be a lot more Spanish speakers who are concerned about certain issues, but there's also English, Spanish families and so forth, and we're acknowledging those. And so to me, that was something that I have never witnessed before. So it was like, wow, this is a great problem, I guess, if you want to say it like that. It's a great problem for us to have as Democrats, is that we're finally at that stage. Now, I hope next time, maybe we can, move further and further. So thank you.
What's the hard part of it is that me being Latino and being in the middle, being an independent, I've seen both sides. And for some reason, I've seen a lot of Republican Latinos reaching out more to Latinos from their party than our own Democrats.
Yeah.
And it's very saddening, but I mean, we have to be honest. I mean, I personally live here, and the only one that has reached out and has us involved and making us, on that group and all that, the North Carolina Hispanics and stuff, it's Elke, and she's Puerto Rican.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
it's interesting.
It's very sad that we have locals, but they're not really, they're waiting for someone else to clap so they can get up, and that's not right.
Well, and that's kind of what the conversation was that I had with the reporter, that we do see these things changing, and we do see it's a systemic problem. We have old North Carolina and old Charlotte, that it's not easy for them to sit back and let other ideas, other conversations happen. And but that's not unique to us in the Latino community. I'm
That's
sure
what
that
we talked about last week, about us Latinos not recognizing the power we have. We don't have to wait for the Democratic Party American to do things in order. If we have the Latinos Democrats, hey, let's get up and do this. And then get a phone, call the Democratic Party and say, hey, I'm doing this, but I'm reaching out this group of white or this group of Latinos. They might not speak English, but they're US citizens, and we're encouraging them to go and vote. But nobody wants to do it.
Hey, Barb.
I'm listening to Ruth, and it's making all kinds of bells go off in my head. And I'm also an independent voter. I remember your show on what does LatinX mean? And I would say that term here locally, and everybody, what does that mean? I said, I don't know, but I'm going to find out next week. You would not believe how surprised everybody is that there are this many different communities, this many different groups of people, and they were freaked. So I'm not defending the Democrats because I'm not a Democrat, but the reluctance to speak to a community of people that you don't know anything about is great. And I really agree with you, Ruth. I think they're kind of waiting for you guys to tell them, but I don't think they have any idea how many different groups of people. Now, Art has a friend in Florida, his family's from Cuba, and he talks about and for a lot of the Cubans. And what was freaking him out is all the allegations of being a socialist and all this. And he had to sit down and explain to his family, no, that's not true. And well, why can they say that? And so I think it's ignorance. I think
we have to learn.
And somebody's got to help them, because at least they're reaching out to you. But I think they just don't know. And I was stunned.
They just need to learn the backgrounds of each country. Everybody here, because we're all in one bucket as Hispanic or Latinos, but they don't know our backgrounds. They don't know the difference. Cuban people come from a very bad country where, communists and going through so much stuff, slavery type. So we can't approach them and tell them, this is what we want, this is good. Because if they don't know the real meaning of it, their mentality is very close. That's what we need to do. And I appreciate Secretary Collette. Yes, there's no excuse. We definitely need to do a shift, but it has to start within us. Each leader that has been wearing a hat out on the thing. I'm a community leader. I don't get paid for anything. I do what I do for passion because I want
Yeah.
my people to understand things. But what about those that are really getting paid for it? They're not doing their job. I'm not going to make it easier for them. That's
I
for
agree.
sure.
I agree.
Well, you made it, all of y'all made excellent points. And that's one of the reasons I'm a history buff. And I was very fortunate where my grandfather really wanted us to remind ourselves of history, see where we came from. And he used to say this, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you came from,
Yeah.
whether it's Black history, whether it's Irish history, Latin American history. So you learn, you understand why New Mexico politically is the way it is, why California is the way it is, why Texas is the way it is, why Colorado, why Hispanics or Latinos.
Why they sold our lands?
Yeah, well, no, exactly. Why a Chicano is different than a Tejano? What culturally? How that happened? How people were influenced the way they were, and like I said, we just finished Hispanic History Month, and if you have access to PBS, if you're a member of your public broadcasting stations, you can go on there and watch the documentaries. The latest one was Latino in Latino America, or you can buy it like I did because I want to keep watching it. It's a 6-part series. It educates us where we were, how we came from, and what the future looks like. And I think it's important for us to see that. But I thought what was very, very interesting was she asked me, the reporter, she said, do you have family in Houston? Because I understand that there are some Puerto Ricans that are upset because the Biden campaign was reaching out to them and they feel like they're being considered to be Mexicans. And my first instinct was, I was like, oh, well, I don't really have a lot of family in Houston, so I couldn't help her in that way. But I thought, isn't that interesting that we have allowed, and I'm going to use this because that's the only way I know how to, white America, to somehow make the word Mexican as if it's a bad thing. And that we have actually bought into this this idea that Mexican is a bad thing. And I told her, I said,
who helped that perception?
Of course.
Well, no,
Right.
that's way before that. Everybody
Yeah,
that would see us as
happened
Latinos
before.
always thought that
Yes.
Mexico was just the next country after US.
Exactly. And even within many of our Latino communities, we have this, just as sometimes the N word is said in the Black community, we will say the word, oh, Mexican.
Barb, I was in that bucket
Yeah.
myself. When I moved to Charlotte, to
Mhm.
me, everyone was Mexican because I was coming from a Texas place where I didn't really care about other countries. So
Okay.
I experienced it myself.
So we have to take that word back somehow, or understand the history of Mexico, understand the influence of Mexico, and just the beauty and the contributions they have made to America. They lost half of their land after the Mexican-American Revolution,
Right.
which is a major part of the Southwest America was Mexican land. So it wasn't as if though the individuals, and I use the analogy in the LGBT community, it took a long time for us to take the word queer back. We were being called queer as a bad name, and we have finally, over the last decade, been able to take that word queer back. So when it's being called to us, it's still offensive, depends on who says it, but there are words that we have to take back so the other person doesn't have the power to use that word. But I thought that was just interesting because our community,
Or the LGBT, like gays and stuff in our culture, it was the worst thing ever until we started learning the real meaning of it and understand that they're just different. Well, we just have to accept them and love them just the way they are. But I guess they made it seem like, oh, it's the worst. You can't get along with them. You can't get near them. I'm like, that's the same thing, just the color, our culture and stuff. We need to learn more about that.
And then
It's a growing process, right? The more you're exposed to different modes of thought and different people from different political or cultural or ideological backgrounds, you grow. You grow, and you're like, oh, this is a better way to think about the world, or this is a better thing to say. I mean, we're talking about Mexicans, and I live with one, so I think Mexico is amazing, and I would never confuse Mexico with any other country. And I'm so glad they were terrible at fighting wars back in the 1840s. Go Polk.
Well,
He was from Pineville, by the way.
Yeah.
Manifest Destiny, all that fun jazz. But I'm okay if we give California back. We can give California back. That'll be fine.
And they're going to fall in the ocean anyway, so yeah.
But you know, I do encourage everyone to watch this documentary, and I do think that our Latinx or Latino community, whatever term you use, and we've said this before, whether you use Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, I use Latinx, it's more gender neutral. Whatever Tejano, if you live in Texas, some people are Tejanos, and so for Chicano, people have, those are more political terms, whatever. So I thought it was very interesting that this reporter from a Spanish major network asked me, is there still systemic racism with white Latinos? And I said, yes. I said, my name is Fernando Christian Cano Jr. I ran for Congress as Christian Cano because I knew if I ran under Fernando Cano, I would maybe get 5 votes. The reality is, if you are part of a community that has to assimilate, you try to use the names that you think are going to give you least of an obstacle. So on my resumes,
but aren't you putting more power to them?
Yes, but the reality is when I have to compete I'll be honest with you, and I've said this before, I can't remember if I told you guys, I remember the exact day in college, a sophomore in college, when I started going by the name Christian instead of Fernando. I was working at a country club in Fort Worth, Texas, and one of the persons, a Bass, I don't know if anybody knows who the Basses are, big oil people, said, hey, Fernando. And I said, yes, sir. He said, is this court available? And I said, yes, sir. He goes, listen, do you have a middle name or something? Fernando's too hard to pronounce. I said, well, my middle name's Christian. He said, well, I'm going to call you Christian. That's the day I started to go by Christian. And I remember going home that weekend and telling my family, they've always called me Nando Boy, which is short for that. And like, why do you go by that? I said, it was less confrontational for me entering into the world where I had to assimilate to start going by that name. And I know being in the hotel business, and I understand because I've heard Mark Jarrell talk about this on our show. If you are a Black American and if you have a word that a name that may be not as understanding to the white American, when you're looking at that resume and you have 5s, you may have some implicit biasness where you see, and I'm going to use the word Jorge. When Jorge ran for office, my biggest fear was people who are from old Charlotte going, Jorge, where's he from? That was even within the Democratic Party, I have people asking me, where are you from? And so, and we call those the bless your heart racists in our Democratic Party. And so, yes, in states like this, now, if I were back in Texas or whatever, that word or my name could be more advantageous. But the reality is, when you're living in North Carolina, where we still have some obstacles to overcome, there are many people that are, for whatever reason, have to more Americanize or assimilate their names or use parts of their names. And look at Nikki Haley. That's not her real name in South Carolina. I mean, let's look at these names. I mean, Dimple Ashmere. Dimple is not her name as city council person. She uses the more shorter term Dimple. We have to use those names because there is still this systemic.
What about Tariq?
Tariq is short for.
But I don't think he cares what his first name is.
Yeah. Well, Tariq is Tariq's first name. And I mean, Tariq can't do anything about his name because I mean it's a Syrian name. What are you going to do? I think it's Syrian.
So that was kind of my explanation to her of, yes, we do. It may look like I don't, those of us, I have nieces in Florida whose, names are more Americanized names. If there's such a thing, I don't know if there's such a thing as an Americanized names. And to this day, they still may experience, depending on what they post on the social media, some backlash from people who will ask them, questions. So yes, there is still systemic racism within our I don't know.
Well,
anyway,
Christian, I think Fernando is a great name. If my name were Fernando, I'd be like, me llamo Fernando every time. I would live it up. It's a fun, awesome name. And this is coming from a guy whose name is Steve. I mean, Steve. Yeah. Like what's Steve? In every rom-com, Steve is either the friend zone permanent guy, or like the jerk that no one cares about. Like, oh, Steve.
But you see it in Spanish way, Esteban.
Esteban.
Yes. Well, I can tell you, it was very popular when ABBA was making a comeback in the 90s. I don't know if anybody knows the ABBA song. So, all right. I don't know if anybody
I
gets
do.
that.
I know what you're talking
Okay.
about.
All
I
right.
know.
Good.
I
Thank
know.
you.
I know. Yes.
Thank you so much.
And now you're going to have that song in my head all day. Thank you.
Well, Christian, just as a new student of systemic racism and whatnot, it's just so.
Can't hear you much, Dr. B.
You what?
There you
There you
go.
go.
It's just so consistent that it was a quite powerful man who got you to kind of change your name. I mean, that's just another little example of what I'm learning here, your microaggressions and whatnot. And of course, it worked out convenient for you. And the bottom line is, it's hard to assert one's ethnicity in white United States unless you have some power. And so back then you didn't have any power. And Muhammad Ali probably never would have adopted that name early on in his career. It wasn't until he knocked a few people out that he kind of like, okay. And what about the basketball player?
Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah. So first he had to establish himself as being exceptionally great. Then he could say,
7'2", that'll do it.
I think you got it backwards though in that case, because at least in those two individuals, their name change corresponded with a conversion to Islam. And in Islam, when you convert, you take on an Islamic name. Same thing happened with Malcolm Little, then Malcolm X, then Malik Shabazz. They take on the name of their new faith. So I don't know if it's like, but they were already famous and powerful in that sense when they made that change.
But Dr. B, you grew up in Texas, and I believe, is that correct? I mean, okay.
Yeah, the valley. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you grew up in Texas.
Cages are right now. That's where I grew up.
Oh, yeah, that's. I did explain to her that we are going through this cycle in America, which is a great cycle where individuals like me, I call myself part of the lost generation, the 80s and 90s kids of baby boomers and that in the Southwest that don't speak Spanish, and we're kind of like the lost generation. We are rediscovering our heritage. And because there was a time where we were almost, and we've talked about this on the show, where it was, you didn't want your friends to know you went to a quinceañera or you went to whatever the case may be. Now we are rediscovering our heritage, and it's a wonderful thing to be in North Carolina, even with the movement that we've got going here. That as Dr. B says, I'm at an age where if you don't like the fact that I'm embracing my heritage and where the history of my family, I'm sorry, bless your heart, but I have been listening to ranchero music, which is the music of my grandfather. I remember being in the truck, my grandfather listening to ranchero music as we went fishing, and it just brings back those memories. Tejano music, I remember going to weddings and quinceañeras and all kinds of things, listening to Tejano music. And so when I'm listening to this, I don't understand what they're saying, but I love the music. And it is just a wonderful thing. And so I want to leave with this because we need to wrap up, and I apologize for us all going over. But I was joking about how I've been listening to so much Tejano music, ranchero music, mariachi music on our smart speakers on all of our where we go, that's periodically a Spanish commercial will come on, because I guess the data mining, Steve and I were talking about this earlier, the data mining, they think I must, obviously this person must speak Spanish because they're listening to that. And so when it comes on, I start laughing. I'm like, they're whatever. Well, finally, Progressive North Carolina, right before we started the show today, I was looking on the Tejano station and on iHeartRadio, the commercial was from Progressive North Carolina. And it was a commercial about voting that was targeting Latino voters, and it was in English, and it said as Latino voters, but it was done kind of like with that Latino accent. Anybody who knows Spanish radio or Latino radio, the announcers are always, oh, come on, it's really over the top. but it was in English. It was Latino voters need to go out and vote. The early voting starts on November 3rd. And don't forget, you can, this is, but it was in English. And I was like, we made a little bit of an improvement. So thank you, Progress North Carolina, for reaching out to those of us who listen to, Tejano music, but you said the commercial in English. So we made a little bit of movement in demanding this. So I don't know if anybody.
Maybe next cycle it'll be in English without an accent.
Yes, exactly. Maybe it'll say, maybe it'll be.
I'll be happy to do it.
Yes, it'll be a North Carolina accent. Come on and come on. That's a Texas accent. Everyone, come on out.
You got to get your name.
Well, listen, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we've explained what Latino Americans in 2020 are, but
they're Americans.
Yeah, exactly.
As beautiful and as diverse a tapestry as the rest of the country, and it's a great and wonderful thing. At least that's my perspective, right? That's one of the things I love about the United States and North Carolina is that if you're part of this grand experiment, come on board. Let's, we're all part of the same team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's
and if you disagree with me, I'm going to try to convince you otherwise.
Oh, Lord.
So we're going to go around the Brady Bunch screen. Tell us where you're going to be and tell us that kind of stuff. And I thank you for staying with us. If you're on Zoom, please stay on. I want to thank you personally.
Have you ever heard of Ramon Ayala?
Is that a singer or?
Yeah, I'll send you that.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm still, I'm still mourning Selena's death. So, that shows you. All right. So.
The morning will never stop.
The morning will never stop. That's right. So
Mourning, yes. Okay.
That's right. So, on the Brady Bunch screen.
Oh yeah, that one.
Thank you everyone for watching us. Thank you, Secretary Colette Alston, and also Sean Thompson. Thank you for your comments. And Secretary said, "Bless your heart, Christian."
Yes. That is the one thing that I've gotten from North Carolina that I love, and I love North Carolina. But one of the greatest, the bless your heart, it's just so much nicer to tell someone who's being prejudiced against you to say, bless your heart. It's just.
They're speechless.
That's more respectful.
It's very respectful. And it's a Southern charm saying, oh, well. All right. So.
Stephen, Dr. B, Barbara, and myself, and then you.
Okay, Steve.
All right. This weekend is Halloween, right? My favorite holiday. So I'm looking forward to that. Got some candy to give out to the kids in the neighborhood. Should be a lot of fun. Going to have some friends over. We're going to have a mask-themed Halloween party. Just because everyone's afraid of getting ill doesn't mean we can't also have some fun. So, masking up with a theme. I don't know. Got to have fun with it somehow, right? And then this weekend, I actually get to share a stage with the Libertarian presidential candidate, Joe Jorgensen, in a Winston-Salem event at a outdoor distillery, which should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. So if you're interested in seeing me in person, hearing my campaign stump and seeing the Libertarian Party's presidential candidate, check out my Facebook page, Stephen for Governor, and or go to the website and follow the links, and there will be posts on social media for how to, where that's located and how to get in touch, and hope to see you there if you're interested. It'd be a lot of fun.
Stephen, in North Carolina, I thought an outdoor distillery was better known as a still. So I don't know if you want to advertise the operation of a still.
Well, that's just laws.
Setting aside my Medicare for All advocacy, because I'm still going to be working on correcting disenfranchised Democratic voters, and try to get this election done and continue my education in Black Lives Matter.
I'm trying to help do a secret birthday party for my neighbor down the street. She's going to be in her, as she calls it, 80s, and don't you dare tell anybody how old I am. That's Saturday. And then football Sunday. The rest of the voters that I'm driving on Monday and Tuesday, Art and I are going to sit and watch the election and hope he wants to get out in my front yard and do his na 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 when Joe wins. So that's what we're gonna do.
I presume you mean Joe Jorgensen, and I'm all about that.
Exactly. I'll tell him that.
Oh my gosh. Saturday, this Saturday at the Creek Church, they're having their fall festival event. It is free to the whole family. It's food, candy giveaway, cakewalk, but the most important is they're giving out COVID testing, blood drive, and mask giveaway. So, and it's gonna be from 11 to 3:30, and that's off of Briar Creek.
Oh.
That's the Creek Church off of Briar Creek, 1451 Briar Creek in Charlotte. And I've been trying to hold off, but I think I'm gonna be going voting this Friday. I'll be doing my early voting. I was gonna wait till the last minute, but I guess not. I've done a lot of research and I think I'm good. I bothered Stephen this week late at night reading some stuff. So
I'm a night owl, so it's all good. I love it.
you. Other than that, what else? I think just go out and vote. I don't care who you vote for. Just show your numbers that we are North Carolina, a good voting group. That's all we care for.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mama Ruth. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to be doing what I can. What can you do in the last 6 days? There's a lot you can do in the last 6 days. You can continue to donate to candidates that you support. You can help them phone bank. You can drive neighbors if you need to. I am actually joining or volunteering for the African American Democratic Caucus Auxiliary here in Mecklenburg County to do some canvassing, some very safe canvassing in unorganized precincts in Mecklenburg County. I'll be doing that Thursday and Friday morning. In the evening time, I'll be working the polls safely, as safely as we can. For Cynthia Wallace on Saturday, I'm trying to give a couple hours to Brandon Lofton, and then also to Cynthia Wallace. I'm trying to do whatever I can over the last 6 days. Even if you can't vote, or if you're not eligible to vote, whether you're too young or you just haven't, whatever the case may be, you can still do these things and try to get out the vote. But I think the most important thing is we all have said, it's just a vote. Vote. The more people that vote in our democracy, the more our democracy continues to thrive. I just so happen to be supporting these two individuals. So someone stole, when we came back from camping this weekend, someone stole my Biden sign. I knew it was going to happen. It lasted a couple of months. So I was very excited. I have 7 signs out there and they stole that one sign. I knew it was going to happen. So thank you for Jenny James Gunn, our former co-host. She came to the rescue and delivered 10 yesterday. So now there are 7 Biden-Harris signs in my front yard. And I've already given one away to one of my neighbors who was walking, and she said, "Oh, I hope he wins." And I said, "I'm only putting these many signs out because someone stole them, and I figure if someone wants to take some more, I've got enough. You're not going to silence me." And she said, "Well, I'm going to take one. Do you mind?" And she took one of them. And so I'm assuming if someone takes those signs, it's because they need them for their yards. But my
well, not like us on our runabout. Our yard people came yesterday and they put them down, and they did not put them back up.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and that's happening, I think, all around areas. People are cutting grass and some signs are being taken down.
Yeah,
but
they don't put it back up.
Yeah, of course, signs don't win elections. Votes win elections.
Thank you.
So we need to still vote. I just want people to know that you're not going to intimidate me. If you take a sign, I'm going to put more signs out. So, and we've got video of the individual. So as long as you smile.
At least he was wearing a mask. That's good.
Wearing a mask, but if you want to, he was wearing a mask. That's right. He was a safe person. So once again, everyone, thank you so much. Next Wednesday, hopefully we'll have some idea and we'll have our schedule for November coming out. We do want to have, and I'm glad Dr. B is on right now. We do want to have an entire show dedicated to Medicare for all, and also maybe explaining to people while the Medicare open registration is in, what's the difference between Medicare and Medicare Advantage? Because I think a lot of people,
I can help with that. I used to do that for a living.
Yeah, a lot of senior Latinx Latinos and allies don't really understand the difference between those. we see the commercials, the Humana commercials and all those commercials, and it's confusing to people. So we do need to
I'm
have,
confused, even
Yeah.
though I'm in this. I'm confused with my mom's insurance and Medicare and Medicaid and all that crap.
Call me. I can help you with that. I used to do.
Like, I don't know what to do.
we do want to have the show. It may have to be next Wednesday's show because we may not know the results. So that might be the show. But I do want to say, because we're running over, and I'm sorry for saying this, but if you see the Humana commercials or those commercials and it says, if you get Humana Medicare for all, you get free eye tests, free dental exams, free this, free
It's been
gym
going on in
membership.
the Spanish television commercials as
So-
well.
But they're able to, this is a private insurance company. It's so expensive that they have enough leeway to give all this stuff free. And then I started thinking, isn't that the same thing as Medicare for all? What people are except without the third of the overhead?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, the only way they can
No.
afford all of that is the markup is so expensive.
And they gotta pay Joe Namath too. I'm sick of that ad.
My argument is they're making the perfect case for Medicare.
Actually, you gotta meet up your deductible until you get something free, isn't it? That's the way I understand it. I don't know.
I don't know, but if you look at the commercial,
Well, let's do some research and have a show about that because people
That's right.
like that.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to end. Everyone say goodbye. Thank you for on Zoom. Stay on.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.